Senior White House and political correspondent Ed O'Keefe joined us as we watch this video. Ed, this is the moment that he was shot. Blood was then seen pouring from the side of his head, from his neck, and now this.
That's right. We're now more than an hour since this happened, and the concern and the prayers expressed by Republican leadership especially came quickly. We've seen several Democratic Party leaders as well condemn political violence in this country. This is yet another high-profile example of it. And I think, Maurice, it's important that we acknowledge that there are probably many people watching right now who don't necessarily know who Charlie Kirk is, are not familiar with the work he's been doing for the last several years, because in our increasingly digital and divided world, he may not have been served up to them in their algorithm and in their feeds. And he is a 31-year-old from the Chicago suburbs, as you said, founded this group Turning Point USA back in 2012, inspired by the Tea Party movement. And he very quickly became a really influential conservative leader, especially among younger conservatives, galvanizing them to vote for various Republican candidates, and became very close with the Trump family, the president, Donald Trump Jr. especially. He was among those that pushed now President Trump to select J.D. Vance as his running mate, believing that Vance reflected the future of the Make America Great Again movement, and was able to convince him to do that. And then last year, during the presidential transition, was in Palm Beach at Mar-a-Lago on a regular basis, meeting with the president directly, handpicking potential leaders for the new Trump administration, cabinet secretaries and other senior government officials, weighing in, saying that they were key to the new government. And he was hosting, in this case, as you can see there on the 10th, the American Comeback Tour. This was the opening of this tour that was set to go to other campuses across the country. They regularly draw thousands of people, mostly students, mostly men. And as you see there on the tent, it says, "Prove me wrong." He had this popular segment where he would essentially sit at a table, and in this case under a tent, and invite people who disagree with him on issues to, quote, "prove me wrong." And they would have an exchange of ideas that was generally respectful. And it could be on anything from issues in the Constitution to something in the cultural zeitgeist at the moment. And the goal was to just have those free flow of exchanges between them. But he was most especially an influential and key figure in the Trump movement. Again, close with the president, and many in the White House who this afternoon are quite stricken by this news. Our colleagues who are over at the White House say when this news broke, as they learned about it as we did, many of them rushed into closed-door meetings and have been seen to be quite upset by this, understandably, because this is somebody who worked with them to get Donald Trump reelected. And in many cases probably weighed in on whether or not they should be holding the jobs they do, and would have campaigned alongside him back in the day.
Okay, Ed O'Keefe, thank you for that. Vice President J.D. Vance weighing in, saying, "Eternal rest grant unto him, O Lord," sending out a prayer for Charlie Kirk. 31 years old, a major figure on the right. Even if you don't know him, he was known and loved by many people across the country. Let's go to our CBS News chief Washington analyst, Robert Costa. You can't overstate his impact on the right, Bob.
A tragic moment with many developments at this time. The governor of Utah has just posted on social media, Governor Cox, that he spoke with President Trump and said that, quote, "We will bring to justice the individual responsible for this tragedy." So President Trump, talking to many people involved on the phone, CBS News, has also just learned that the House of Representatives, led by Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, just is called for a moment of silence to recognize the death of Charlie Kirk and to offer prayers for his family. This is a seismic political moment in American politics. While he is so young, as Ed O'Keefe said, he is someone with enormous influence and power. And this comes at a politically charged moment in this country where so many people feel on edge. You feel it when you cover events, when you cover the president of the United States. But this is someone, I've been covering conservative politics for nearly 20 years. He is such a star because of the way he articulated his views and was able to sit down with people not only on the right and in the center, but to sit down with figures like Governor Gavin Newsom of California and many Democrats. This is the death of someone with influence, but also the death of a rising political star. So many Republicans on Capitol Hill are heartbroken because they saw him as a friend. They also saw him as a real leader of conservative politics in this country. And for the president to make the statement about his death tells you a lot about how President Trump, who has been the Republican nominee for the past 3 presidential cycles, how he feels about this man. And it's hard to quantify and characterize the amount of anger, frustration, pain that is being felt in so many corners of American politics right now, especially those who knew Charlie Kirk.
And Bob, he had no small part in helping Donald Trump get reelected, right? I mean, Trump gives him a lot of credit for getting out there and getting the youth votes.
President Trump certainly does. Over the years, I've talked to President Trump, and he believes he's always at the center of his political movement, and he's the one who drives it forward. But even he has acknowledged in recent years that it was people like Charlie Kirk who, in the wake of his defeat in 2020, stood by him through legal challenges, through other issues. Charlie Kirk helped President Trump on the outside rebuild a political movement that ultimately lifted him to the White House in 2024. And you see these crowds, it's reminiscent of a Trump rally, but with a younger audience. And he was someone who connected President Trump to younger people who felt displaced in the culture or in the political system. And in the way others on the left and center have rallied youth, Charlie Kirk was someone who rallied youth on the right. And he became a force on college campuses, a force inside the Republican Party. I've spoken to Republican politicians in recent years who said speaking at a Turning Point USA rally was just as powerful sometimes for their own constituencies as speaking at a Trump rally. And this is going to, already it is, based on our reporting here, convulsing so much of the political conversation in this country. The agitation, the anger, it is coursing through so many of the text messages, the phone calls I've had within the past hour, outrage that this violence is having such an impact on a major American political figure like Charlie Kirk, who was as high profile as almost anyone else on the right, competing with those on television in elective office. He was seen as someone with political capital, not just famous, but influential.
Yeah, Bob, and I think a word you used there, connect. He really knew how to connect with the people, with the voters, and help Donald Trump get reelected. The reaction pouring in from across the political spectrum, as we keep telling you. Chuck Schumer, Senate Majority Leader, Minority Leader, I should say, saying political violence has no place in America. The shooting is horrifying, and I'm praying for Charlie Kirk and his family.